Hey everybody, I'm Benjamin, aka The Terrible Australian at supermarsy.com, and welcome to my video review of the sci-fi film The Fifth Wave. So let's get right into it. Now, I enjoy sci-fi films, I mean, who doesn't? And especially alien invasion films, because they're particularly kind of my favourite sort of subgenre of sci-fi. So when it came to this new film, which is based on the young adult novel of the same name by Rick Yancey, I thought it didn't look particularly new or special in any way, but I thought, it had a lot of talent behind it. I'm a big fan of. Like, it's directed by J. Blakeson, who a couple of years ago, directed the British thriller The Disappearance of Alice Creek, which I thought was a really solid film, and also was written by Oscar-nominated / winning screenwriters Susanna Grant and Akiva Goldsmith, and it's produced by Tobey Maguire, and as well as Graham King, who produced the Oscar-winning The Departed. So this film does have a lot of big talent behind the scenes, and of course in front of it with Chloë Grace Moretz, who's one of today's best young actresses, and who I'm a big fan of, and she's the lead of this film. So in that regard, and also a pretty strong supporting cast as well, which has Livingston, Bello, Maika, Monroe, Liev, Schreiber, Nick Robinson, and many others. And so in that regard, it kept me interested anyway. So having now seen the film, it pretty much kind of lived up to my expectations of it, which is it's a watchable, if rather average, kind of sci-fi alien invasion film. There are elements of it I liked. I think visually the film does look really good, and for most parts the acting is serviceable. Particularly, as always, Chloë Grace Moretz does a pretty solid job with her work here. It's not like one of her best performances, but she still does a really good job nonetheless. And she also sort of brings sort of an emotional core to her performance, especially because her character goes through so much during the course of this film, and so the fact that so in that regard, she sort of adds those sort of emotional layers to her character. So that way we kind of are still engaged by her role. And also the supporting cast, again, serviceable, nothing kind of particularly memorable. Liev Schreiber does a decent job, even though it's clear he's there for the paycheck. Same with Maria Bello. Although I will admit of the supporting cast, it's Maika Monroe, who of course, for all those out there she was the lead in The Guest and It Follows. She definitely is one of the standouts of the supporting cast, and I enjoyed her performance as well. And it was also, I didn't even recognize her at first because she's very different in the film, and she has darker hair and makeup and stuff like that. So when you'll see the film, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And also, one of the things I got to give credit to this film is that there are times where the film surprisingly got pretty dark, and particularly in the first 2/3 of the film, which you think, okay, aliens trying to destroy humanity and whatnot, but how they sort of show that is, I actually found pretty bleak, and I was actually surprised for a film like this to actually be as, I'm not going to say it's like the most depressing thing ever, but in terms of sort of a film like this, for based on a young adult novel, that it did get rather bleak. Maybe not in terms of, say, The Hunger Games, which to me is still probably the best of the young adult adaptation series out there. So the way this sort of tackled some aspects, sort of darker elements of the story, I actually found quite effective. And the film actually looks great. Like, it's pretty decently directed by J. Blakeson, and also it looks pretty good as well. Special effects, pretty solid. Action set pieces, pretty solid as well. But in terms of script, like I said, it just doesn't bring anything that we haven't seen a million other times before in other sort of sci-fi alien invasion films. So, and also some of the sort of plot twists and whatnot are pretty predictable, and you can kind of see them all coming a mile away. So in that regard, it kind of lessened the impact of the film to me. And also, I did feel like the film is a little too long as well. Like, it's an almost 2-hour film, and it kind of feels like it could have easily been trimmed by 10-15 minutes. And particularly, of course, as with most young adult sort of novel adaptations of young adult novels, There's there's another bloody love triangle in there as well. And to be honest, I'm kind of sick of this kind of trope that's in most of these adaptations, because it's just useless and just adds nothing. And like, even though it is sort of set up. Like, I assume if another one gets made, and depending, well, based on the box office, that's probably not going to happen. They're sort of more setting it up with this film and then exploring it more in the next ones. But to me, I think this is one of the weaker aspects of the film, particularly with sort of Chloë Grace Moretz's character's relationship with a character by the name of Evan, who in the film is played by Alex Rowe. Sort of that whole subplot of the two of them is just sort of dragged the film, and it just felt rather sluggish and unneeded, and it just was kind of the more boring aspect of the film. Like, not to say that the rest of the film is better in any way, but at least it was a bit more interesting compared to this subplot. So yeah, it was definitely just didn't really work for me at all. So overall, The Fifth Wave, it's a watchable film. I'd say it's more of a rental rather than having to go out into the cinema to see it. So it's a watchable film, but overall it's a pretty cliched and average alien invasion film. So if I had to give this one a rating, I'd give it a 2.5. Like I said, it's watchable, but pretty forgettable. So yep, that's the end of my video review of The Fifth Wave. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all later. See you, everyone.